Hello. Oh, I look tired. It's about 4:45 in the morning on let's see, May 8th, 2019. Middle of the night video number 10. So this is actually more like middle of the night than some of the earlier ones I've done. I figured something out maybe I shouldn't say that. Something came to me when I asked a question, because sometimes when you seek the answer, it doesn't work. But if you find the question, the answer comes right afterwards. I was looking at Louise Hay's book, Heal Your Body. And because I was trying to figure out a little bit more what's going on with my left hip. I have a fracture in the left hemipelvis. And had a bone biopsy done. They pulled some tissue from the left ilium and that tied in with some other body parts, with lungs possibly. So I was looking at lung and I don't remember what else. Maybe it was hip bone or something. Hips. And what I found was deep resentment or deep grief. And I thought, well, deep makes me think of maybe it's old, maybe it's well buried, maybe it's big feeling and way in there. And nothing popped to mind once I was thinking about it, but I thought, well, let's just ask what it might be about, what I might feel some deep resentment and or grief about. And when I asked that question, what came up was first the memory of my former husband John leaving after we had divorced, and leaving, like literally leaving the house, going when he was moving out. And yes, there was some resentment. And what came up was he just left me. He just left. How can he just leave? And I sat with that a little while. And it was at that point a lot of resentment and some grief, but a lot of resentment. And then it was just a very short while. So I sat with that for a very short while, like literally maybe 30 seconds, 45 seconds, a minute. And then what came up was my father. And if you've been watching these, or if I've actually published the second book by now, and it might be in the first book too, but my parents divorced when I was like 12, 13. And my father, I would go over and stay at my father's apartment, I don't know, about every other week, once I started going over there, after I got over the discomfort of it. Because even though when he was living at what was my home before my parents separated, even though he didn't seem involved with the family, and when he was there for dinner every night, but he didn't seem really involved, like Mom's really involved. He was at least surrounded by us. So he when he was in his apartment by himself, he was lonely. So he eventually he must have been really lonely. I mean, he and I didn't have a relationship much up to that point because he wasn't really involved. But he all but begged me to come over and see the joint. You want to see the joint, he would say. Mm-mm. And eventually I did. But he was moderately sexually abusive of me from about my age 13 to 15. And then there was the last incident, after which I don't recall even going over there until I was much older, and I would go over with my or several years over, I'd go over with my then husband, and we would play cards or something with Dad. But after that last incident, after he took me home, I don't recall him ever asking me to go over again, or me ever going over again until years later. Well, what came up when I asked what's the deep resentment or grief about that might be affecting these body parts and causing Well, you could say causing health problems, or you could say causing me to really look at some things that I'm deeply resentful and grieving about, and therefore they are tools for growth. Let's say it's one each: health problems and tools for growth. Well, what came up is I thought, why didn't he ask me over again? Why didn't he want me anymore? And this sadness and resentment about him stopping asking me to go over his apartment. Well, okay, for those 2 years that I went over there, and he was, sometimes the relationship was fine, and sometimes it was abusive. He didn't ask me the whole time. It just became a habit. I would go over there, every couple of weeks. We'd have dinner. We'd play cards. I'd spend the night, or a friend and I would spend the night on the pull-out sofa bed in the living room. But what came up was that sadness and that frustration and that lack of understanding of why he didn't want me anymore. And I was so uncomfortable with that. I had to honor that part in me. That's a funny word. I don't use it a lot. I know other people do, but I was telling that part in me that was mourning this and kind of half angry about it, that her feeling that way was okay. So I was talking to this aspect of myself that was this feeling or feelings. But of course, my adult mind understands and remembers that I was abused and had a real hard time with the wording, why doesn't he want me anymore? So I had those two things going on at the same time, which is not uncommon for me and probably for other people too, right? And so I was telling my logical mind, I said, I understand you have a problem with this because there's this maybe it's innuendo in there that says you wanted him to want you sexually, and I thought, I don't think that's what this part of me that just wanted to be wanted as a daughter, as a child, as someone who wanted attention, as someone who wanted a father. I think those are two different things. So I said, let's just let them be two different things that I'm dealing with. And so I sat with this grief and resentment and such sadness and seriously not understanding. Well, logically I can understand. He was extremely uncomfortable with what he himself had done, I'm guessing. The last time I'd been over there, I was horribly uncomfortable with it, and I think he was terribly uncomfortable to see what he was capable of. That's my adult mind guess. Based on growing and maintaining a much better relationship with my father throughout my adult years. I was really happy, and I told that part that it was extremely brave to come forward and say that, to say how sad she was and how confused or confounded by, how upset by not being wanted anymore. So I started to say, I let her know I was a little uncomfortable with that phrasing, and she could keep using it, but I wanted to understand what she wanted. She just wanted a dad who paid attention to her, because she didn't get a lot of that when she was up to about age 12. And then she had it. She had a dad who paid attention to her for several years, and then all of a sudden he didn't want her anymore. That's pretty clear. It's pretty clear. So she and I sat and cried. We're all one thing, but I interact with her as if she's separate inside me. We sat and cried. We're upset, probably a little angry for a while. Longer than 30 to 45 seconds. And then I said, there's this other part that's worried about, pulling in the sexual aspect of the relationship with Dad, and a lot of which was verbal and emotional type jabs and innuendo, and a lot of it was, some of it was physical grooming as well. I'm saying that just to be clear. Gosh, I thought I was going to make a shorter video again this time. Huh. Seems I can only make a long story medium. I can't make one short. So back to what I was talking about, these two aspects of me. And I said, okay, clearly there's two aspects of me. And this is for me a way to get what appear to be disparate parts, or parts that disagree, or parts that maybe haven't interacted with each other before, something like this, together in one of the kinds of meditation I do. And so I said, this is what I'm getting from you, and this is what I'm getting from you, and I don't think you're the same. I said, but you know what? I'm going to tell this part that I don't want to have any sexual aspect in. It makes me extremely uncomfortable. I'm going to say, if there is a sexual aspect here, if there is this sexual aspect here, in this at all, I still love you. I love you. I just love you. I understand you wanted your dad. And what happened is, when you and your dad started building a relationship, there was sexual innuendo in it. So of course you got, I'm so sad about this because I don't want to be ashamed about it. And I also wish it hadn't been this way, but it was. That I tied together sexual attention and love in a relationship with one of the two primary men in my life. The other one was my brother, and he and I had a great, healthy kid relationship. Great, healthy, wonderful kids that played together and explored together and just had fun relationship. Well, with my dad, it wasn't that way, and so I understand if the way I learned that being a kid wanted by a dad had sex as an undertone, and sometimes as an obvious overtone. That's fair. That's what I learned. That's how I was trained by that early relationship with Dad. And I kept telling it, I love it, I love it, I love you, I love you, I love you, I love you. And I understand. Because what damn good does it do to damn ourselves? Period. But also to damn ourselves, but about by the training we got. Why damn myself for that? I'm okay with being uncomfortable with it. I'm okay with being sorry about it or sad about it, and that'll pass too, I hope, eventually. So valuable to listen to parts of yourself and know that you can trust that even if you're uncomfortable with it, you can love them, or at least accept them and hear them. What a way to build self-trust. So your subconscious will tell you, or maybe it comes up from the unconsciousness. Sometimes it will tell you more and more and more about yourself, and you can know yourself better, which helps you, but it also can help you understand other people. This inner work, I have found, filters out in relationships with other people. Of course it does. It's how you keep practicing this loving, welcoming, listening, accepting thing. And I started finding myself saying the same things out loud to people that I would say to myself. That's okay. You just have two things that don't agree. And that's okay. That's not unusual. It's not uncommon. you know, maybe they're going to see eye to eye at some point. Maybe they're going to understand each other, these aspects of yourself. You're going to get a better understanding. It's okay. Or I can't even think of another example, except I think I got better at understanding that people are a little complex and confusing, me included. Can be. I'm not sure when to say that now that I've said it, but I think it helps me have to have everything clear, logical, straight path. We're just a little messy inside. Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. Not all those ducks want to be in a row. If I'm not rambling, I think I'm going to start rambling soon. So I'm going to quit now with this video. And I'll see you the next night I'm up in the middle of the night.